So the reboot of the cinematic Hellboy franchise opens with a voiceover in which Ian McShane declares that the backstory was set up in a time called the Dark Ages for good f***ing reason. Look, I don't care how the movie becomes after that. You start McShane bawling during the opening goddamn voiceover, I'm yours. For reals, I was chuckling about different things in this movie for an entire afternoon after seeing it. Hellboy's a blast. It's an outright dumpster fire, a terrible, terrible movie that feels like it comes from the era of Spawn and Steel, but I actually had a good time. Neil Marshall spent nearly 20 years now trying to be John Carpenter, so say hello to his John Carpenter's vampires. Which is actually funny, because I used to really love the idea of James Woods playing Hellboy once upon a time. Fun actor, horrible, horrible human being, clearly, but fun actor. So yeah, John Carpenter's Vampires is about the level we're going for with this franchise reboot, and it is just the worst. Apparently they were big on keeping this more faithful to the comics and such, but literally none of that dedication has been applied to, say, the performances, outside of like Ian McShane, who's just having a hoot being Ian McShane, and to be fair, why not? And David Harbour, who makes for a far better Hellboy than you'd think. They actually seem to have built their trailer solely around his worst moments, which is a choice, I guess? But make no mistake, outside of those two dudes, this movie's a flaming motorway pile-up disaster for performances. Remember when they cast Ed Skrein as a Japanese-American character and the inevitable response meant they have to draft Daniel Day Kim in instead? He, incidentally, is Korean, so race bending's evidently fine within certain optical limitations. Anyway, all of that led to a performance you'd expect to see in a movie directed by Uwe Boll. His accent's hilarious, the character's just a knob, and even the redemption arc they give him is just very sub-LXG, you know? Also, I've been watching Daniel Day Kim on screen since Crusade back in like '98, and it still gobsmacks me that guy is 50 years old. He really should launch his own skincare brand. Meanwhile, Sasha Lane's truly terrible as well, and playing a red-haired white Irish woman, but nobody wants to kick off about that bit for some reason. And all of this level of problematic crap is before you get to the movie itself. Which is terrible, but a good time. In sort of a Paul Anderson 1995 kind of way. So if you've never read these books or seen the previous movies, they actually did some pretty decent animated ones too. Hellboy's a demon raised by the Nazis and adopted by a professor of the supernatural. That's McShane here. The professor raises Hellboy as his son, all the while training him up as an agent of the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, which is usually just called the BPRD. And he fights monsters. Said monster on this occasion is the Blood Queen, a pissed off, out for annihilation, bubonic plague spewing Arthurian Mila Jovovich, who's effectively unkillable unless you saw that season 2 Buffy episode and know to just hack her up and lock the pieces in separate boxes. Jovovich, who's hardly someone you're ever likely to see holding a Best Actress statue, somehow delivers the second worst performance of her career with this one. I say second because, well, Ultraviolet. The dialogue's terrible, the visual effects look about the level of a Sharknado flick, the performances are screechingly awful, and the storytelling suffers at the hands of what's clearly some behind-the-scenes meddling. And incidentally, yeah, turns out that actually happened. And that's why having 16 goddamn producers on a mid-budget action horror flick might not be the wisest idea. I mean, who'da thunk it, right? But that nasty, dark-hearted sense of fun is just about enough to have a good time with. I laughed my ass off both at it and with it, so it's not a complete write-off. But it's seriously deranged that anybody involved could look at the finished product here and think there's anything close to a franchise launcher. I mean, a streaming series, totally, take my money now, but good God, this is a terrible movie. Fun, but terrible. Actually, one of the things that leaps out at you about it is that it looks throughout like they just forgot to color grade this thing. It's weirdly stark to look at in the same sort of a way Justice League was a couple of years back. It's almost like meddling in these things never ends well. But this winds up with the extreme result that includes Hellboy's actual arm being an entirely different color to the rest of him. Something you can't help but giggle at when you learn that the conference room pissing contest they had over this involved sacking Neil Marshall's go-to cinematographer Sam McCurdy. So of course it looks terrible. 16 producers, ladies and gentlemen. But fun. Garbage, but fun. Quite why any of this has happened is a mystery, to be honest. Lawrence Gordon and Lloyd Levin apparently snaked the film away from Neil Marshall because they never promised him the final cut, and then we got whatever the hell they think this is after the fact. And why you'd want to treat the director and the DP that gave us the goddamn Battle of Blackwater Bay like crap, I have absolutely no idea. That's maniac level stuff. But do read the original piece over on the Wrap, it's fascinating. So, in summary, terrible, disastrous mess of a movie. Not as bad as, say, Spawn or the 1998 Avengers movie, but more the quality level of Vampires or that David Hasselhoff Nick Fury movie from way back when. No, really, Hasselhoff played Nick Fury. In a movie with Lisa Reiner. Colonel Chekhov from Stargate played Dum Dum Dugan. And that was still better than nearly every DCEU movie. But yeah, this is sort of about that level. Also, Stephen Graham voices a Scouse pig monster, so you automatically get an extra star from me for that. Speaking of, 2 stars. One for the opening line, another for Liverpudlian Man-Bear Pig. Really, what kind of dumbass hires Neil Marshall to make a Hellboy movie and then meddles? This should have been gold. Instead, it's a feature film adaptation of the Man or Muppet song. Nice work, guys. Good luck on our Watchmen series. Also on the it's fine cause fun spectrum, meanwhile, little. So Regina Hall's a cutthroat tech magnate who gets what's coming to her when she's transformed by a magic spell into her own 13-year-old self, who's played by Marcy Martin from Blackish, and Issa Rae from Awkward is the put-upon assistant who has to cover for her. And it really is just a reverse Big by way of literally every Will Packer movie ever. And if you don't know that name, by the way, you really should. He's been responsible for just about every major black ensemble movie of the last decade that didn't involve Tyler Perry. And they usually kind of land where this does. It's pretty funny, it's got a decent bite to it, it's peppy, perky, it's got a little heart to it, it makes its moral points decently well, and Marcy Martin's just delightful. It's like I say, she's best known for playing Diane on ABC's Blackish, which to be fair is a show that does run the gamut from brilliant to nauseating on a dime, but that's now given us the youngest producer in the history of the industry. For reals, the 14-year-old star of this movie also produced it. And I kinda think that's maybe why it works so well. The entire thing's been crafted around the notion that Marcy Martin just is the kind of character she plays. I've seen her in interviews, she doesn't seem to be able to switch it off. And that's fair, it's very obviously working for her, and she's damn good at what she does. It's got some hard laughs in it, there's a weird element where everyone seems to dress like psychopaths as if it's the most normal thing in the world. But even though you can see every single beat coming a mile off, it's actually good-natured enough to keep you entertained anyway. So 3 stars, I'd watch it again, and hopefully we'll get more Marcy Martin vehicles on the back of this. Oh, and someone please tell Will Packer that other cities exist that aren't Atlanta. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, rate, and review.